Alrighty, welcome to Romera Records podcast. Today we have on
Keegan Paluso.
Awesome. How's it going, man?
Man, it's going great. Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you on. So actually, I know we just talked about this, but it just slipped my mind. It was the Luis thing, right? That's how we found each other?
Yeah, the Luis Page thing. I
Okay.
took a picture of her and tagged her in it, and you were in the background.
Oh, that's right,
And you
that's
messaged me randomly like, "Hey, that's me and my wife. Will you send me that picture?" I'm like, "Sure, man." And yeah. And then I found out you. Oh, you messaged me. You're like, "Hey, you work at Rhythm and Grooves right down the road." And yeah, so we've been following each other on Instagram ever since, man.
Yeah,
So.
and I love that about Memphis. It's a big, small city to where, like, I've been running into people. You know, you were asking me, do you know who Crockett Hall is? I'm like, yes, because I had him on my podcast.
Yeah.
And so far, people you probably know, I had on Crockett, Victoria,
Yep.
Luis, and Elizabeth Craig,
Yes.
Victor Sawyer, Lucky Seven Brass Band,
Yes, I know Victor.
and
Sunweight. You had on Sunweight.
Oh yeah,
I think-
so you know Sunweight.
Yeah, they did. I think they did my podcast the same week they did your podcast because that was when their record was coming out.
Okay,
So yeah, that they did like a big podcast push. So I think it was like the same week they were on my podcast. They were on the same podcast.
Nice.
So yeah, man.
I just had on another band last night. I just released their podcast today. It's shoot, I forgot to post about that. But Flirting with Sincerity. Have you
Yeah,
ever
I
heard
know
of
those guys.
that? Okay, yeah, I
Yeah.
just did their podcast the other day. So
Very cool, man.
yeah. So I guess let's get into first of all the things that you do. You were telling me about a good bit. So
Right.
start wherever you want to start with that.
Oh man, I was trying to figure out a way to I was driving here trying to figure out a way to word what exactly it is that I do. It's like I don't have an easy answer for it anymore. So I'm wearing a Graham Winchester shirt. So
Okay.
shout out to I don't know if you've met Graham yet.
I haven't.
He's awesome. He works with Crockett at Sun. He's arguably the busiest man in Memphis as far as gigging goes. So the easiest way to put it is I'm on a quest to be as busy as Graham Winchester. But no, like I worked in music education for 8 years. I've taught every grade from pre-K to high school and all that stuff. I teach private music lessons. I'm a songwriter. Playing front a rock band, and then also freelance. So like I play drums for Oak Walker, Victoria's band. I just got done filling in for a punk band, the guys from Lipstick Stains. I don't know if you've met them. They would be great to be on here because they're
Somebody
wonderful
told me
people.
about them. That name sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's Ryan and Xanthi, Mom Saucier. They're a married couple, and
Okay.
then but they parted ways with their drummer and their bass player, and like in between them hiring new people, they had like some dates. So I just played drums in a punk band for like 2 weeks.
Okay.
So yeah, like I just do, and then like I've got my own podcast, Modern Working Musician, and then we have a recording studio up in Tipton County, and then I'm also a full-time dad. So So I don't have a simple way to describe my music career anymore, man. I wish I did.
So how'd you start? I love asking people that.
So I was in 8th grade. I'd always wanted to play music, and my dad got me a drum set for 8th grade when I was for my 8th grade birthday. And up until then, like I live in like rural Tipton County, like I live in the country and stuff like that. So it was like 4-wheelers and dirt bikes constantly. And then, I got a drum set in 8th grade. I was like, well, this is it. This is what I'm doing forever. And got in marching band in high school. In Munford, where I went to high school, we had a very, very competitive marching band program.
Really?
Very competitive throughout the state and the country and stuff like that. So, like, marching band was my life through high school, and went to college for music because I loved band so much. And it was one of those, like, I loved music. I loved marching band. So I fully intended on being a band director. And then, as soon as I graduated, I needed a job. So my first job was teaching middle school choir, which I had done none of. So I taught middle school choir for a few years. And then I taught elementary school music in Orange Mound for 3 years. Then I just taught high school marching band for 2 years or like a year and a half. And then when my kid was born, I was like, nope, done with that. And so... Yeah, so that's the long and the short of my music education career. But along the way, I was playing drum set in bands, played bass guitar, and we had a steel drum band when I was in college. So I started playing bass guitar in that, which led to regular guitar and songwriting and stuff like that. And my brother and when I started playing drums, my brother picked up the guitar and started singing and stuff. So my brother and I have always been playing in rock bands together and things like that. And now my brother sings for Blood, Sweat, and Tears. He's super famous. He's also a TikTok famous bird watcher.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, that's the long and the short of my very nebulous career.
So that's pretty cool that you know music. You know, like a lot of people just don't. Like you were saying, the kid that can play drums well but can't do other things well. Like,
right.
That's me. Like I can make beats. Like I just made a beat for somebody, and they were like, "Man, this is great!" Like I did it pretty quickly, but like I know the basics of a piano. Like if you look at this keyboard that I have right here, I have the freaking letters written on the on the keys, so I know like what key is which, and that's just something that I haven't taken the time to just sit down and like truly learn how to play, but I've done enough to get away with like, you know, the basics or whatever. Yeah. So I really appreciate people who actually know music. They can, you know, read music. You know, a lot of people don't know how to actually read music, so. That's impressive. I'm impressed with what you can do.
I appreciate that, man. I do think there's two really, when people talk about music theory and stuff like that, one, like I'm super passionate about teaching music theory. So if you want, I can teach you music theory. Been teaching it for a long time. So, but I do think when people think about reading music, I always tell everybody to keep two things in mind. Like one is music theory as we know it developed from things that people thought sounded good first. So if you're making music that you think sounds good, you know, whether or not you need to translate that into music theory may or may not be necessary.
Yeah.
But that being said, the vast majority, I feel like culturally, because I'm like what you would call like a classically trained musician, right? Like I can read music. I know music theory and stuff. I do feel there is a lot of what I would consider an access issue in music theory and reading and writing music, because it's really it's far and away easier than most people think it is. I mean, there's 12 notes in the chromatic scale. That's it. We only have 12 notes. And then as far as rhythms and things like that, if you can do fractions, you can read rhythms. So I really think so many, because I remember when I first got to college for music, I was terrified of music theory. Like I was a drummer, I could read rhythms all day long, but once you started moving notes up and down, dude, I was lost. So I really struggled and had a lot of like misplaced anxiety towards music theory, which is why I'm so passionate about it now, is because like once I kind of figured it out, I realized like 90% of it was my own intimidation, if that makes sense. So those are my two, like I said, I love music theory. However, like if you're doing what you think sounds good, is it necessary? I don't know. You know what I mean? So
that's why I feel about making beats. Like when I make beats, I know it sounds good, but I can't, you know, finding the root note or finding, you know, what's it in the key of and all this. And somebody asked me like, what are the chords? Like, I don't know. It just sounds good. So.
Dude, I've got you all day. I love teaching. So anytime, dude, I love teaching music theory, like especially that, like chord scales, what key you're in. Like I love that stuff. So like anytime, man, we'll just do a music theory lesson right here. No, this is the whole podcast episode is me teaching music theory. No.
Yeah, I've seen like people, they'll do like those like a breakdown of a song and stuff, and I'm just like. It's not even their song. They'll break down somebody else's song. They'll tell you like, oh, it's in this key. It's got this melody, these chords and stuff like that. I was like, that's so impressive.
Yeah,
like, to have that knowledge.
Yeah, and like I said, if you once you learn like what a major scale is, what a minor scale is, and then what the chord progressions are based off of those keys, 90% of them in pop music are exactly the same.
I've heard that.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to use like take your C scale, for example. Okay, so like it's all the white keys on the piano. So C, E, D. Oh my God, I'm gonna say it wrong. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Like all the white keys on the piano. So like your one chord is if I built a chord on the like first note of the key. So if I built a one chord, it would be C, E, G, because it's the root now. And then your 4 chord, which is like your predominant chord, would be, we are doing a music theory lesson, man.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Your 4 chord would be building a chord off that 4th scale degree. So C, E, D, G, or oh my gosh, I keep saying C, E because so C, D, E, F, boom, that's your 4 chord. Okay. And your 5 chord, which is your dominant chord, is, C, D, E, F, G, build a chord off of that. So like a 1, 4, 5 progression would be C, F, G. That's how you build progressions off of a scale.
So when you listen to music and you hear, I'm asking this because I've seen a very famous producer I've seen recently talking about how he hates using C, and I think it's because it's so popular and prevalent. Like most people, I guess, are using C because I've heard there's like just the science to like, well, most people use this because most people are accustomed to that sound. So that's why like you were saying, pop music all sounds the same. Is because people know it works. Like this sound works. If you hear that, are you like, oh my God, they use this again? Or are you just like, well, it's just a song?
That's a really good question because when I started playing music, I was a metalhead. I still am, but like, if it didn't have like a shredding guitar solo and like a crazy double bass something on the drum set, like I hated it. Like that was my criteria. Does it have a shredding guitar solo? Yeah. If not, it sucks. And the more I studied music, the more music I would hate. And I really and truly thought, I was like, I'm going to go to college for music. I'm going to hate it so much. And honestly, like being a metalhead and stuff growing up, like I had zero appreciation for hip hop. I was one of those like, you can't spell crap without rap. I was one of those people. And then like, I didn't get into hip hop until my 3rd year of college. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is an entire like art form. And it was beautiful. And that was it until I studied music. I didn't have an appreciation for so many styles. But so I will say, like me personally, if it sounds good, I really don't care. My biggest thing, the music that I love, is when I can tell someone is either enjoying themselves or making something honest. If I feel like I'm being pandered to in a sense, that's the music that I tend to shy away from. That being said, I'm not above like some just good like booty shaking pop music. You know what I mean? Like, because sometimes you gotta shake your butt, man. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like, so I there's some music that I can tell is like very formulaic, but for the most part, like it doesn't bother me. Now, that being said, I know plenty of musicians are like, oh, we're doing this again. I hate it. So, no, like, just because, and I think that's why a lot of people shy away from learning about music or music theory is they're scared that once they know what it is, it's gonna like pull the curtain back and ruin music for them. And for me, it's been the opposite. Like just because you know how it works doesn't make it any less enjoyable to me anyway. So
I know like that happened to me with when I started learning more about photography and videography. I looked at movies completely different. Really, like I was like, "Ugh, why'd they use that lighting?" Or, "Oh man, I really like how they use that lighting and stuff like that." But before then, it's just a movie.
Well, I think learning about color grading.
That too.
And like the whole like orange out thing. And like the early, I watched, me and my wife watched Step Up 2 the other night. Okay. And like everything was so orange, man. I was like, dude, I can't do this.
I've noticed, so like, I guess dramatic or cinematic. That's what the term they use. It's like, it's got that like a teal. It's like a greenish tint to it. And when I started noticing that, I was like, that's interesting. And then, like as you said, like a warm. If everybody has seen the what's the name of that movie? The new Jamie Foxx, and it's got Snoop Dogg in it. The Vampire. It's on Netflix.
What? I didn't even know about that.
You didn't know about this?
No.
Oh man! So I'm not going to spoil it for you, but there's a movie. It's on Netflix. It's got Jamie Foxx. He is a vampire hunter, and Snoop Dogg is also a vampire hunter. But it's like a like a task force. Like they are.
God, this sounds amazing.
Yeah, they are. I don't know, task force, like a police force. They just hunt vampires.
Oh my God, I want to watch this movie so bad.
Yeah, it's pretty good, no doubt. Gosh, but yeah, it's really warm to it. But it takes place in California, like Los Angeles.
Really?
So I think that's what they're trying to do. And I saw some photo one day. It was like it was pretty funny. It said Mexico in real life and then Mexico in movies.
Yeah.
And it was just like
orange.
Yeah, just straight orange.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And I was like, that's so true. Like
Yeah.
every time you see Mexico in a movie, it's just the whole scene's just
Yeah,
orange.
it's like, oh, we're going to not America, orange.
Yeah. I was like, that's so crazy. But that's that's how I guess we've programmed in our head. If you go to Mexico and that's all you've seen in the movies, that's what you're thinking. It's just
Right.
It's warm, it's orange. Like that's what you're gonna see red dirt everywhere.
Right.
Those colors.
Yeah, I will say it was like we did when I was in college, the percussion ensemble. We did a field like a travel study in Mexico for like 10 days or something like that, and it was absolutely beautiful. Like we were in Tampico. It was like
Okay.
down towards. It was like on the coast, but it was like way farther south. But it was absolutely gorgeous down there, man. I would totally go back in a heartbeat. So
I didn't realize how like mountainous Mexico is.
right, yeah. I mean, I didn't know what I was getting into in the first place, but yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by that entire experience.
So speaking about traveling and stuff like that, have you messed? You were talking about steel drums earlier. Have you messed around with like different instruments of different cultures and stuff like that?
Yeah, so like in college, the degree that I have is technically music education with a percussion emphasis.
Okay.
So what that means is basically it's a percussion degree, but you have to take education classes so you can get a teacher's license, basically. So, but my main thing was like I had to give a senior recital and stuff like that. So, and my professor at the time, Dr. Julie Hill, she did her dissertation in Brazil on what's called samba reggae. It's like parade drumming in Brazil. So yeah, we got exposed to like, and the coolest thing, because drumming is one of the like oldest forms of music.
Yeah.
They're just like there's a ton of it around the world. So we did like Balinese drumming. We had like I said, we had a steel drum band that we actually gigged and stuff that I played bass guitar for. But yeah, we basically every semester we try to learn new percussion instruments from different parts of the world. So we did some Middle Eastern instruments and stuff like that too. So yeah, it was a blast, man. And yeah, it was really cool, like taking that and trying to put it in the classroom too. So we did a little bit of it, but not a ton. So
what do you think about the different sounds? Do you favor American drums over like different drums?
that's a good question. I think the coolest part to me was like what we think of as like what we think sounds good, we think is like a universal sound. And like that is not true across so many cultures. Like what we think sounds good, like may not sound good to other cultures. And like, there's the old adage, like people say music is a universal language all the time. And I'm not going to like argue for or against that, but it is really interesting to see like what cultures view as like what sounds good and how it is vastly different to like from what we consider sounds good. Because I mean, the majority, of our musical history is either like Western Europe or African music put together. But yeah, like you take the marimba, for example, like the large mallet instrument. Like in certain parts of Africa, they love the way that it sounds if it like has a buzzing sound to it. So like here, like buzzing noises, if your instrument buzzes over here, you're gonna assume something's wrong with it. You're like, oh yeah, but like they go like that's a sound that is super ideal to them. So that's really interesting to me. So yeah, but yeah, that's the best example I have. Or just like different types of metallic instruments from Eastern instruments and things like that too. So
another thing I find interesting is just like the tempo of like different, I guess, different people's, I guess their liking, their interests. So like with hip hop, you can go one tempo, and you were also talking. What was it called? The signature, like the time
signature.
Yeah,
Yeah,
time signature. So have you ever heard of? I guess it's just drill rap.
I've heard of it, but like I don't know what it is specifically.
It sounds so strange. That and like people who are from Detroit, Michigan, they've got this certain sound. And correct me if I'm wrong. I've been telling people this for years, but I've probably been wrong the whole time. But I always say it sounds like they're rapping on the downbeat instead of like, I guess, just like a regular. I don't know if that's correct or not, but they just got this weird rhyming scheme to it where it sounds like they're off beat. But really? That's just how they choose to rap on the beat. And I'm just like, this is so weird. But I don't know. It's just like I said tempo, but maybe just like their cadence and how they choose to attack a song is just so different. But like
really?
you can choose. You know, you just pick any kind of rapper. They're going to use a beat a certain way, but it's interesting how people hear a beat and choose to rap on it a certain way. Like I said, Detroit has their own specific sound.
Really?
And it's like, how do y'all think the same to use that type of tempo or cadence or time signal? I'm just like, that's interesting.
Yeah. Do you have any artists in particular that come to mind?
I know there's a famous Detroit artist named Sada Baby. I absolutely hate his music, but
I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yeah, I'll let you listen to something later because you're gonna be like, they sound offbeat, but it's really just, I always say the downbeat, but I think they're just rapping in a different cadence than most people would usually attack a song. So I'm just like,
oh, I'm so interested. So
yeah,
like,
it sounds different. It's just different.
Dude, yeah, I'm here for it. I got really into I think it's called noise rap.
Noise rap?
Yeah, it's like, have you listened to Clipping at all? Oh yeah, like it's just like so Clipping. It's David Diggs. He was the guy. He was in Hamilton. And he did a bunch of stuff, but it's him and two producers, and he just like he'll rap over like a feedback loop. And then like their latest record, the final track is called Piano Burning. And it's literally like they burnt a piano and recorded it for half an hour. It's just the weirdest, like darkest. Goodness. And it is creepily, like it's very like dark, like the lyrical topics and stuff. But I cannot, and I like all my classical music friends are going to get mad at me for saying this. One of my favorite composers is a guy named John Cage. I don't know if you've heard of John Cage.
No.
So John Cage was this weird hippie in the 50s. And he was just like, I'm going to do a very, can I say curse words on here?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's not super bad. I'm going to say like a bastardized version of his life story. But basically he was like, his philosophy was that all sound is music. So it's like, oh yeah, like boom, that's a piece of music and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, his most famous piece is called 433, 4 minutes.
Yes, yeah.
I think you might have seen all the memes I was making about him on Instagram. I made so many memes about him. But yeah, his famous piece called 433, where you just sit at the piano for 4 minutes, 33 seconds, don't make a sound. So like I love, like I got really into, we did a John Cage concert when I was in college. Like I got really into Cage, and I fell in love with weird noises. Like I love like the weird art, all that stuff. Like I have no explanation. I just absolutely love it. Like I think it's great. So like to find a style of hip hop that does that same exact thing, it's like we're gonna rap over like throwing light bulbs off of the ceiling. You know, like that's so cool to me. Yeah. So
that's I never really thought about doing that. Just like no beat, but just have random sounds like while you're like basically rapping all a cappella, but then just like throw random sounds in there. That's
I'll send you some clipping, man. You might dig it. I mean, like it's not for everybody. Like I said, it's really dark. Most of the lyrical content is like really like dark and morbid and stuff like that. But like and then like I said, he's at some point he's rapping over a feedback loop. Sometimes they'll like it's crazy. But yeah, it's totally my jam.
That's wild. There's a couple topics I wanted to bring up to you because one, Flirting with Sincerity brought this up. They were talking about what is they were asking me if he kept saying Sonic Pulse, but he meant Silk Sonic.
Oh yeah.
So he was asking me what I think about Silk Sonic as them as a band, but then I started really bring up a different question, and it's like, what is a band? Because it's just those two guys, but like they used a lot of I know they did some of the horns or it's either the horns or the rhythm section of Silk Sonic. What is it? Boo Mitchell records them. I can't think of the freaking. It's like a famous group here. I think they do horns, but just the fact of like bands nowadays, like it's not the way it was. Like I'm 30. I was born in '92, and the bands back then I feel like just don't exist nowadays. Like I was saying, I listened to maybe like some Seether, some Creed, Crossfade. I listened to a lot of Alter Bridge.
Dude, I love dude. You're not. I mean, I'm 31, so like,
Okay.
we were alive during the peak alt rock
to
period.
me, those were classic bands for
Yeah.
me. And I guess those are like, the 70s versions of classic rock. You know what I mean? Like the, I guess that's 70s. I don't know. Like, I guess AC/DC, Metallica, people like that. So
Yeah.
what would you say nowadays can be considered a band? We're in this electronic age where like anybody can just make sounds and then,
Yeah, I mean, this might sound like too philosophical of an answer. I don't know.
It's great coming from somebody who knows music the way you do,
like,
teaching it.
I would classify like in the classical music world, you classify an ensemble as just any group of musicians. And that's an ensemble, whether it's like me and you, we're a duo, trio, blah, blah, blah. Like, I feel like calling yourself a band, do you know who Ben Ricketts is?
I've heard the name.
Yeah, Ben Ricketts is you need to get Ben Ricketts on your... Ben, if you're watching this, come be on this podcast because it's really good. Now, like, Ben Ricketts did an episode of my podcast, this was back like right before COVID. It was like 2019 and stuff. But he talked about how there's never been a golden age of music. Like there's, I think especially if you look at just the history of humanity, like in the past century, we have accelerated like human progress exponentially compared to anything. And I think that comes with a very, a much larger lack of standard than we think. So I think like, what is a band? Me personally, like nowadays, I don't necessarily know if there's a standard definition. I think it's a matter of semantics. So like if calling yourself a band means you're going to make the kind of art that you want to make, then like call yourself a band. If it's if you need to call yourself a duo or an ensemble, like whatever you want to call yourself, I do think semantics does influence art and philosophy. So I think, like if you're, there is a group, I cannot remember who it is, but I think it's a hip hop group, and they call themselves a band, but like nobody plays an instrument, they all rap. Like if that's what they need to call themselves to make that art, that's cool with me. Like I'm sure there's somebody out there who's like, no, a band is real instruments, and they're probably like, they could probably make a case for that. Me personally, I think, like I said, if that's what you need to call yourself to make good music or make the music you want, call yourself a band. Like is 21 Pilots a band? Well, I mean it's a lot of electronics, but they're both playing real instruments too. Like, it would be hard for me to say that that's not a band. You know what I mean? So
I think about that with, I've seen this hilarious meme. It was, I think it was a tweet or something, but somebody said 2 random white guys could walk up to me and tell me they're the Chainsmokers, and I would believe them.
Dude, I told that joke tonight.
Oh, really?
Yes. Oh, dude, I have a funny, so I just went on this long defense of like all music in general and how it's all good, and I have a story about the Chainsmokers. So it was my friend's bachelor party. So needless to say, like we went to Nashville. We're at a music place, like we're at a club, whatever you call it. Shows how much I go out. We're at one of those places where people dance. We're at the discotheque. No, I'm just kidding. But it was like 2 a.m. And this song, like the DJ keeps playing "Closer" by the Chainsmokers on repeat, and it's 2 a.m. We're at my buddy's bachelor party. We're like dancing and singing and hollering. We're like, "This is so awesome!" And the next day, we're driving back from Nashville, and it comes on the radio, and I'm like, "Dude, it's the song! Turn it up!" We turn it up. We're like,
"Oh my god,
this is awful! What do we do?" So like, yeah, that whole night we're like, yes, but I mean, I do think like EDM and stuff like that. Like me personally. Like dance is in the name, electronic dance music. I'm not gonna listen to that in my car because I can't. Like I feel like EDM is one of those things that you need to experience, like in a club or something like that. And I do think that is one of my philosophies. Is like I do feel like certain music fits certain fills certain roles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna, like I think the EDM's a prime example. Like. That music is designed to dance to, and designed to move your body to. So, like, that's the purpose I'm going to fulfill. Like, I'm not going to listen to EDM, like, relaxing in the bathtub. You know? Me personally, anyway. Some people might, relax to EDM, but not me personally.
Yeah, I definitely think, like, that's something that artists fail to think about when they're in their creation stage. I actually made a video on this for the Damage Media Group. I put it on TikTok and Instagram, cool. Damage Media Group Instagram. But what happened was I found a guy who is my connect for doing shows in Germany. And I posted about it, and I had all these people hitting me up. And I was like, I know what's going on, but other people don't. I just said, hey, if somebody wants to do some shows in Germany, just let us know. And just all these people were hitting me up, and I was like, this isn't for you. But I was like, they don't know that. So I just made this video talking about if you're an artist, you should understand the purpose of your music.
Totally.
So if you are a heavy metal band, unless it's satire or some very specific, like, did you ever see Happy Tree Friends and Friends?
No.
It was like a cartoon where, like, it was kind of like, I guess, like Teletubbies or something like that. But it was a cartoon, and or they were like little bears.
I got you.
And they would like rip each other's heads off and kill each other and stuff like that.
Oh my God.
Anyways, I said all that to say, if you're a heavy metal band or something like that, you're probably not going to get a little kid's cartoon or something like that.
Right, yeah.
So you need to understand like what your music can be used for. Like who is going to use your music, the mood they're going to be in, like when they're going to listen to your music. And then think about that when you create your music, because that is how you're going to get the most out of your audience and the best, or like the most amount of listeners, is by targeting those specific people. Like if you're a rapper, the state of Nebraska is probably not where you're going to get your biggest audience from. Like they're not listening to that kind of music there.
I don't know, Omaha's rap game.
So with that being said, I think it's important that like, oh my gosh. So I think it's important for artists to really, really think about, that mood, what you were talking about is understanding like, hey, my music could be used in this type of atmosphere. So let me, make a song in this fashion. So
totally. Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think it goes doubly so just because like so many things are algorithm based right now.
Yeah,
My phone, like Facebook, is constantly trying to find the things that I want.
Yeah.
So like in other things like streaming services and stuff like that. So like to cater to your audience is gonna put you in that algorithm to get you in front of the people. Like I could pay for plays on Spotify, but like what do they get? Like they're not gonna put them. Like those plays aren't going to put my music in front of people that are going to continually listen to my music. So
yeah,
I think I 100% agree. And I think you're just going to be happier with your art if you're sincere with it and you know what it's about. Like it's really hard. I've worked with a ton of young songwriters. Where they bring a song to me, I'm like, all right, well, what's this is about? And they're like, it gets pretty vague pretty quick. I'm like, I think that's one thing I've enjoyed going from songwriter to producer to educator and stuff like that is learning how to make people specific enough in their music while still like maintaining their artistic integrity. You know, because I mean, there are some styles of music, and that's reason I love writing in different styles too, is because like rock music, honestly, you can get away with being pretty vague in rock music. You know, like a lot of, you know, like you were talking about Alter Bridge and stuff like that. If you listen to their lyrics, it's like, especially Alter Bridge, like some of those lyrics are pretty damn vague, you know? But then you move over to like country music. Like, dude, you have to be like on, like,
yes.
And it took, I'm actually, me and my brother are writing with our friend John. He runs a label out in Nashville. And we do like a weekly writing session and stuff like that. And one thing I've loved about working with John, because he works in that area, is like there are certain lines that I'll shy away from because I'm like, oh yeah, that's like too specific. And he's like, no, this is the one. And he'll like, I'm like, oh, okay. Like, you know, I'll be dodging things and he'll like lean into them because it's that style. So it's always a fun experience to work with people like that too.
Yeah. I was talking to Luis one time. Her and a rapper, Crisis J, were here making a song together. And Luis was saying, yeah, I usually don't make happy music. And if I do, it's really hard for me because I try not to say cliche things. And I was like, I never thought about that.
Oh yeah, totally.
That's a phenomenon, to try to make a happy song and not be cliche.
Yeah, I remember because I listened to Victoria's episode and she was talking about the same thing. It's so much easier to lean into like I misspoke. It's so much harder to write happier music because like everything you say comes out cheesy and stuff like that. And I think we think of happiness as like a lighter, more frivolous emotion, for lack of a better word, and like sadness is very like easily accessible as an emotion. Like if I tell you I'm sad, like you're gonna know exactly what I mean. And then like, but to creatively express like overwhelming joy is extremely difficult. So maybe our language has not caught up with expressing joy very well. I don't know. Stuff.
And I would also say that like when you make sad music, your music is going to, I feel like it's more, I guess, impactful is the word. Happy music can be very impactful, but like, I feel like people are going to relate to that a little more and like dwell on that song a little more than like a happy song.
Yeah, totally. And it makes me wonder, and I'm just like pontificating here, because like I feel like I'm probably totally wrong in this sentence right now, but I feel like a lot of like when I think of my happiest moments, they are like almost incredibly unique to me. You know, like I mean, I could say like I'm happy that like I have a kid and stuff like that, but like that exact when I talk to people about like seeing my child born and stuff like that, like that's a very unique to me situation. And I do feel like my language is limited in expressing just how amazing that was. However, when like I can express like a sad experience, like I don't know, I'm trying not to think of anything too sad because I don't want to bum everybody. But you know, like I could bring up like it makes me wonder if like sadder experiences can feel more general too. So
I guess, you know, we all go through death. So, you know, somebody dying in the family or something like that. You were talking about the country music. I really want to get back on that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't listen to country basically at all, but like I'll randomly listen to it just to stay up to date on like what's going on, like the state of country.
Yeah.
I need somebody like a president to give me the state of country.
Yeah, dude. I do the same thing, man. I'll turn on like, you know, I'll turn on pop radio. Just like, all right, what's going on now, guys?
What are y'all doing? Yeah. But I'm interested in talking about that because you were saying about the lyrics need to be specific. And I never thought about that. And that is so true because country music, so there's an older guy I work with and he's like, yeah, I don't like country music nowadays. They don't have the stories that older country music had. And I was like, yes, because if I listen to older country music, they've got like a specific story that seemed like real personal and like real cool.
Yeah.
But like nowadays, I feel like country music sounds a lot more like pop.
Yeah. Yeah, I made the comment that one like everything on the radio is hip hop. They just change some things up. Like, I mean, like most country is like it's a hip hop beat, and they threw some like like some pedal steel and some violin on it or some fiddle on it, and I like that. Boom, that's a pop country song. I just overly generalized an entire style of music, but anyway. No, I do think I totally agree. I think or what I hear on the radio now is not the country that I prefer. But I do enjoy like with anything there is a counterculture. And there is like the counterculture of country. Pardon the alliteration. But there is like the counterculture of country in Nashville right now is just so cool. Guys like Jason Isbell and Sturgill Simpson and the other guys that I can't think of, they're really doing like the outlaw country thing. Okay. And it's like coming back around like anything, like with in the 80s, you had like the 80s hair thing, which gave birth to like punk and grunge and stuff that. Well, I mean, punk predates that, but you know what I mean? Like the counterculture, like there's like a resurgence of like the anti-hair thing as well. We got grunge, which is how we got, other styles and stuff like that. So I do feel like just under the surface, there is like some really cool country music happening now. I mentioned this. I was talking to my friend John on my podcast. This is a conspiracy theory at best. I read this thing one time about how September 11th changed country music forever. Because everybody, when people talk about older country music, they talk about like 90s alt country and stuff like that. And like they talk about how like there's a certain song, I can't remember what it was, but it like the overt patriotism of country music started with September 11th. Yeah. So I don't know how much truth. I read like one thing on it, so it could be like a conspiratory at best. But I did think that was a really interesting article because like you can trace a lot of like what we consider mainstream country now back to like the early 2000s. So it could be correlation and not causation, but it is also really interesting to think about. So.
I know there's that one song, sue me if I'm incredibly wrong, but it's like that Uncle Sam put your name at the top of his list in the Statue of it's all these like patriotic things. So I know that song was that was like the only country song I really like knew when I was like a kid. Yeah. And so like those types of things are cool, like when it comes to people who don't listen to the genre but know those songs. Like that's when you know a song is a hit. Yeah. If you don't even listen to that artist or that genre but you still know that song. Yeah.
Well, like if you get up and sing "Friends in Low Places," I was like, "Oh, dude, yes!" Like, I don't care who you are, you're singing along to that song. Yeah. So I don't know. But yeah, no, like I do think, like I said, you were talking about the country thing. It is interesting how like specific you have to be in your writing, and like some of it now is not like some of what's on the radio now is definitely not what I would consider like country music I enjoy or anything like that. So,
do you feel like there's another genre that is bringing stuff back? Like, I know, like, so for instance, Silk Sonic, they're bringing back that kind of that funk sound. I don't know if anybody else is really trying that. There's maybe some older artists maybe getting back in the music game, but does it seem like anybody else is trying to make something old new again?
That's a really good question. Nobody's really. I'm probably just drawing a blank. I'm sure there are, but there's nobody that's really. Well, I mean, you got bands like Greta Van Fleet. It sounds just like Led Zeppelin. Like, sorry for those of you who disagree, but they sound just like Led Zeppelin, and I will argue all day about this one. Like, they can do it. They can do what they want. That's fine. But Greta Van Fleet sounds. So I do think there's like the resurgence of like the classic rock thing and stuff like that. But that Greta Van Fleet's the only other band that comes to mind that's doing like bringing back the vintage thing. I think Macklemore just released a song today. I didn't listen to it, but the video looked very Silk Sonic, and I was like, "Is Macklemore trying to?"
Oh my god!
I didn't listen to it, but the video was like, looks like Silk Sonic.
I just saw this video today. I'm not sure when the song released, but who Tyga is. The rapper. So Tyga and I think her name is Janae Aiko or something like that. And Pop Smoke, who was has been dead for like over a year now, I think,
Really?
something like that. So
Excuse me.
they just came out with a song that literally, I don't know, it's not the same words, but the chorus is very similar to the same words, I think. But it's called, I can't remember what it's called. Maybe Sunshine or something like that. But there's an old song that is literally just like it.
Really?
And like the notes sound the same, the lyrics sound the same. I'm like, and the video was like basically the same.
Wow.
And I was like, what was the purpose of this?
Just redid the whole thing?
The old song was way better. I was like, y'all, and I'm like watching this video. I'm like, this is horrible. I'm watching on YouTube. The song is bad. The video is bad. Everything.
Oh, no.
And I'm reading the comments, and everybody's like, I'm so glad they did this. This is amazing. And I was like, what? Are y'all serious right now? And everybody's like, it's so great that they brought this back and paid respects to the previous music. And I was like,
did you though?
if they respected it, they would have left it alone. They would have did nothing to it.
Yeah, that's so weird. Like I'm glad that people actually recognized where it came from.
Yeah.
At least, I'm not a music hater, and like people liking what they like is totally fine with me. But like when somebody's like, "Oh, this is a brand new thing," like, guys, no, it is not. Like that's the thing that if we're reinventing the wheel and everybody's like, "Look at this new original," like, no, it's not, guys.
Yeah.
So, you were talking about people like the resurgence of all this stuff. I feel like Taylor Swift did a real. I mean, this is like 1989 was like an 80s pop record, and it was wonderful, and I loved it. It's still my favorite Taylor Swift record. So I do see like a resurgence of like, people remaking like 80s music and stuff like that. Well, I mean, dude, like, what was it? Oh my gosh. Running Up That Hill.
Yeah.
Dude.
Kate Bush.
Yeah, that Kate Bush tune.
Killing it.
Yeah. It's a great tune too.
Killing it.
And I do feel like I don't know, I'm not.
So was she popular back then? I don't even know if she was a huge artist. I've never even heard of her.
I'm not the right person to ask about that. But no, I think she was like fairly successful.
Okay.
But like
She wasn't a Cher or Madonna or nothing like that.
No, and then Stranger Things just went. But like I like this is like the music teacher in me too. Like how you discover something. Me personally, like I don't think you are like disrespecting something for how you discover it. You know? Because there were a lot of people like, oh, Kate, you like all these people don't know who Kate Bush is. Like they like her song now. Who cares how they found it? Matter? Like people discovering Metallica from Master of Puppets, which I mean, I'm not gonna hate on Metallica on your podcast, but I'll hate on Lars. I'll hate on Lars all day. I will hate on Lars. So all you Lars fans out there, he stared into the camera intently. No, but yeah, like people, learning about Metallica through, like, dude, there's probably going to be another generation of guitar players from, we had Guitar Hero. Like, they've got Stranger Things, like Master of, like, you know how many kids are going to pick up the guitar from watching that dude shred on top of a, like, dude, like, how can you get mad at that? You know what I mean? Like, I don't. Yeah, like musical gatekeeping, like that really bothers me. It's like people, like how you discover something, like who cares? As long as it's cool and that, like as long as they like it and they respect it, like you don't, like I do feel, especially as like growing up as a metalhead, I did for a long time felt like ownership of a fandom, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like people, like if my favorite band all of a sudden like blew up and was wildly successful, I'm like, oh, all these people, they don't like it, like they don't know, they weren't there in the beginning. Like,
so people do this in the underground rap scene. So if you have like a favorite rapper who's not like signed to a big label or not like a mainstream artist, and then they end up blowing up and people start like loving their stuff, you're like, I've been knowing about him since, blah, blah, blah mixtape and stuff like that.
He's a sellout.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, dude, metal music, like punk and metal, same
way.
Yeah. Like there was a meme I saw one time. It was like somebody waiting on a band to drop their new album. They're like, it's almost here. And as soon as they drop it, it's like a meme of them typing a Facebook comment. It's like, they totally abandoned their fan base. This new stuff sucks. It's so awful. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, as soon as the album drops, it's like, it's terrible. You abandoned your fan base. So, I mean, and it's probably like, being a working musician for as long as I have, like you got to eat, man. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not about to get mad at somebody getting paid. Like, if my favorite band is underground and then they blow up and they're making a ton of money, like, if their music changes, who cares? They're getting paid. Like, I can't get mad at that. So
yeah, you'll find a new favorite artist. Like, the artists are out there. You just got to look hard.
Exactly. You know, and like I said, I'm definitely not a music hater, so it's really hard for me to be like, this sucks now. Like this, but I will hate on Lars Ulrich from Metallica. No.
I've got a few like favorite artists that I loved them at a certain period, and then they blew up and started making different kinds of music, and I don't really listen to it anymore. But like that's what they needed to do, and that's what they need to do.
Totally, yeah. And I think that's a really good point, and a really really cool thing about music, especially in the digital age, is like it's not going any, like the stuff you loved is still there.
Yeah.
It's almost like getting a tattoo. Like, like, are you that same person that got the tattoo? No. Was it a like certain point of your life that you can look back on? Totally. Yeah. It's the same exact thing. Like, there are certain albums that, like my favorite band in high school, I don't know if you ever listened to Godsmack.
Yeah.
Dude, I loved Godsmack so much. And like, I can't say I love them now, but I definitely jammed some Godsmack yesterday.
Do they still make new music?
Yeah, they're still making music. And I mean, it's definitely not my bag anymore, but like, I'll go back and listen to like their first 2 records because it reminds me of being in high school.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's 100% nostalgia for me. So.
Like, I would love to, I'm not going to be able to do this because I don't know enough people who are from around here, but I would love to have like a late 90s, early 2000s party. And, well, those could be 2 completely separate parties. But
yeah.
I'd love to have a party like that and play nothing but music from those time periods. Because that would be so fun, just, like, listening to all that kind of stuff and, like, the nostalgia of it.
Yeah, totally.
It's just fantastic. Like, listening to all those old bands and all the old, like, party music. It's just fun.
Oh, dude, I love it. Dude, I mean, it's coming back to, have you seen the Google? It's like the Google Home commercial or something like that, where they playing Backstreet Boys.
Oh,
like,
no, I see.
Yeah, it's on, dude. It comes up on my YouTube. Like every ad is like, it's hey Google, play, and it's like everybody. But yeah, like it's like, oh man, our generation. It's it's our generation's top 40, man. It's happening.
There's when I was in college, my friends would always want to play. Pandora was the thing back then. And they would always want to play summer hits of the 90s. That was the Pandora playlist we always play. And every song was a hit. It's called Summer Hits of the 90s. But every song was always fun to just like listen to and dance to. And I'm just like, this is so wild. Like the music that we listened to back then. And as you could make a case that music kind of hasn't changed and also has changed a lot at the same time. So
yeah, I totally agree. One thing I really enjoyed about 90s music, from like my perspective anyway, was it was a very just giant hodgepodge of just so many artistic styles just kind of colliding. Like, I feel like from the way I look at the 90s, it was just like there was no like, nobody knew what was going on. They just did whatever. Because I mean, you had like, you had grunge, and then like everybody getting like swing music was super popular for like a year, and then I was like, no, never mind, we're not doing that anymore. Like, when did everybody like? And I still like, I don't know if you know who Brian Setzer is. He's in a band, rockabilly band called the Stray Cats. That's how he got famous. He's an insanely good guitar player. But yeah, he started a band called Brian Setzer Orchestra, and they did a swing record and it exploded. And he still tours and stuff like that. But out of nowhere, he's just like, a swing band is famous in 1996 and then like disappears.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So for people who aren't in the music business, like the music business is so unpredictable. And, we think about artists nowadays as these rich, well-off people who are just making music and just flaunting money. But like, that could be gone the next day. Yeah. Easily.
Totally.
Like, Chris Brown recently was basically complaining, and rightfully so. Maybe who the people he's affiliated with didn't push his music the way he wanted to, but people weren't really listening and paying attention to his music. He dropped an album a few weeks ago.
Really?
And he wasn't getting the attention that he wanted. And I was like, that happens. That happens to everybody. It's not just you, Chris. Like, many people struggle with trying to make sure every single thing that they put out there is a hit. I would even say Drake's last album, who Drake is literally one of the most popular artists in the world right now.
Yeah.
If you look at streaming numbers. But I would say his last album, it didn't flop, but it wasn't great compared to like his, I guess that's the problem, is I'm comparing it to everything else he's done instead of everybody else. But I would say it wasn't that great compared to his other work. But, who's to say his next album isn't going to be the greatest album ever,
Yeah. It makes me wonder, I have a question for you, sir. Now, do you think that information moves too quickly? Like, will there ever be musical icons like there used to be?
No. I say that because I've actually thought about this question before, because everybody says the three most famous, I don't know if they're just saying people in general or just musicians, are the Beatles, Michael Jackson, and I forget what everybody says the third one is.
Is it Elvis?
I want to, yes, Elvis.
Okay.
I think it's Michael Jackson, the Beatles, and Elvis. And I feel like that was because it was hard to make music in that time frame. No, people weren't pumping out music as much. Nowadays, an artist could put out a song a week if they wanted to. That was not the case back then. You couldn't pump out music like that. Number one, it was hard for the audio engineers. Everybody's recording to tape and stuff like that. I think Pro Tools came out in like the 90s, and that's like the industry standard for a DAW.
Right.
So I say no because, thinking about even like actors, there were certain actors everybody just knew because everybody watched that show. Families came, if you stereotypical, no offense to women or men, but the wife stays at home, takes care of kids, cooks, cleans, stuff like that. The man, blue collar, comes home from work. You sit down, you watch TV around prime time. I think it's like starts around 7:00 p.m. Everybody's watching the same show at the same time.
Yeah.
We don't have that nowadays. You can watch whatever show you want, whenever you want. So, have you seen Game of Thrones?
I've not.
Perfect example. That I'm glad you said that because that was the point I was going to make. Is
the most iconic show of the decade. I have not watched it.
Tons of people have seen Game of Thrones, but you haven't. Back then, and a long time ago, everybody had seen the same show because everybody's sitting down and watching it at the same time because there was nothing else on.
There were like 3 channels.
Yeah, you had like 3-5 channels, and that was it. So I think because we have so many artists nowadays and there's so much information out there, you're not going to have a Michael Jackson or the Beatles or an Elvis Presley ever again.
Yeah, I do think the people talk about the resurgence of vinyl, like it's happening in Memphis record press is like expanding and stuff like that. Have you heard of the band Clutch? They're like a stoner rock band from the 2000s. So. Okay, one of my favorite bands. When they got famous, I was like, "Dadgummit!" But anyway, now they this was 2011 when they released their first record on vinyl because it was starting to make a comeback, and they made a really good point. I remember like growing up listening to CDs and stuff. Like a CD was like $10.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm like kid. Like $10 is a lot of money as a kid. So like if I bought a CD, I was gonna like make sure I listened to the shit out of that CD.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
all the time.
Yeah, and like whether I thought it sucked or not, I paid $10 for that CD. I'm gonna, you had what is it? Oh man, what was that place? It's like FYE, for your
Yeah,
entertainment.
yeah.
You could like trade in CDs and stuff like that, but still you had to go to the mall and stuff like that. So I do think music now is more disposable
Yes.
than it has ever been. Like my Spotify, my like weekly, I was like my weekly roundup, is that what's called? The weekly playlist that I make for you. Like I caught myself the other day, like 10 seconds to a song. Nope. Just scrolling, man.
And that was music they're suggesting off of your past history.
Yeah, which is really weird. Like I don't know what happened. So I I listen to like one indie band and like in a smattering of other things. Like I listen to vastly different music all the time. But I listen to one indie band and then my weekly round is like all indie bands that have been like recorded on an answering machine. I was like, how? Like, no, this is not what I like, Spotify. But anyway, that's another rant. But yeah, like if that had been a CD years ago, and I had spent $10, like I would not be just like scrolling through tracks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember when Clutch released their first album on vinyl, they talked about how like listening to music, especially on vinyl, is a much more active activity. Like when I'm listening to Spotify in the car or something like that, I better be driving first. That needs to be my my primary task. But like when you're listening to vinyl, like you're not gonna like put on vinyl and then watch TV or anything like that. So like like listening to vinyl becomes like the primary activity.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah,
we invite people over to listen to this album.
And then you've got the huge like artwork and the lyrics and all that stuff. So I think that's one reason why vinyl has made such a comeback is because listening to music has become like the primary activity in those situations. So,
yeah, it's an experience that you're truly trying to dive into and understand like what's going on with that artist. But
totally
that shift that we went through in this digital time frame, it definitely made a dent in how we think about artists. I would even say going to social media as well. Like, Dolly Parton isn't killing it on Instagram and stuff. I mean, she might be, I don't know, but I've never seen her, something on Instagram about Dolly Parton or stuff like that. But the younger people, that's their outlet to get eyes on them is to if I'm famous on Instagram, people are going to listen to my music, and they might be. You might see, a famous band just like, cooking or something like that. But that might be their way of being funny or entertaining. And then at the end, all right, our album comes out this day. Check out our music.
Yeah, my brother is a very fascinating case study of all of that because, Keith, come be on the show. I'm just talking to everybody through your camera, man. No, so my brother, I'm just going to tell my brother's life story real quick. He was a park ranger for a long time. So my brother and I, we had, my brother's my best friend, other than my wife. Sorry, Lana. You know what I mean? No, my brother's my best friend. We talk every day and stuff like that. And we play in a rock band together. But, growing up, we both loved music. We both loved being outside. We were in Boy Scouts. We're both Eagle Scouts and stuff like that. So when the time came to go to college, he went to college for biology. I went to college for music, and then we were still both outside and music all the time. But no, he was a park ranger for 7 years, something like that. But he, when my nephew was born, he basically took his paid time off to dad it up for a few months. And in that time, he just put some cover songs on YouTube. And next thing you know, he gets an email from The Voice. He's like, hey, we want you to be on the show. And he's like,
oh,
okay.
Dang.
Yeah, crazy. He missed my wedding. I'll never forgive him. No, I mean, it was fine. He had to. He was sequestered to be on the show. So he couldn't come to my wedding. But he sent me the most precious video. It made me cry. But it was cool though, because my wife and I got a second honeymoon. We went on our honeymoon, went back home for 3 days, and then flew to Hollywood to watch my brother audition for The Voice. Nice. Super rad, man. But yeah, he was on The Voice, made the top 24, and then gets off The Voice and goes back to park ranging for a little while, gets a phone call. It's hey, this is Blood, Sweat, and Tears, the famous Grammy-winning fusion band from, that played the original Woodstock. Do you want to be our singer now? What? Sure. So now he sings for Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Well, then COVID hits, And he's like, well, they're not gigging, so I'm gonna go do some bird watching. He decides to post bird watching videos on TikTok. Now he's got like 150,000 TikTok followers for bird. It's like my brother has 2 dream jobs. He uses touring in a famous rock band.
Yeah.
So like when they're touring all over the country, he just finds random parks around the venue and goes and like he did like bird watching videos in like Norway and stuff because they're finding like. But yeah, like it goes back to like what you're talking about. Like, yeah, he uses his music to fund his bird watching, to fund his music, to fund his bird watching. It's so bonkers, man.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So that whole story, I love asking people this question. And have you ever heard of How I Built This? It's a podcast. Really cool podcast. I really suggest it to everybody. But
cool. I'll check it out.
It's about. I hope I don't forget the point I'm trying to make while I say this, but the podcast is about, it's a guy named Guy Raz. It's a NPR podcast.
Okay.
But he basically just interviews people who own and run businesses, and it always has to be somebody who like started the business. So it can't be like he wouldn't do Tim Cook because he didn't start Apple.
Yeah.
But he would do like Steve Jobs.
Gotcha.
But he's had on like huge corporation people, and then also like some. They're always like bigger brands, but I think he's had on. Have you heard of Dave's Bread? It's like bread with
Dave's
like a
Killer
dude.
Bread. Yeah,
he had that guy on.
Cool.
He was in jail.
What?
Yeah, he was in jail for a long time. I forgot why he went to jail, but
that's why his bread's so killer.
Yeah, that is. I didn't even think about that.
Dave's Killer Bread, so good it put him in jail.
Oh my god! But yeah, I forgot why he was in jail, but he was in jail for a long time, and I'm saying I forgot everything, but I think he came up with the concept of the bread like while he was in jail, and then ended up getting out, getting his life straight, and then started the bread company. But anyways, he always asked people, I mean, he always talks to people like that who like started a company and now it's a big company and stuff like that. I think he had on like Ben and Jerry's, the guys who started that, and all kinds of people. But anyways, at the end of the podcast, he would always ask people, how much of your success do you think is luck and how much of it do you think is just hard work? And that's a great question because everybody has different answers. A lot of people have the same answer. They're like 50-50 or mainly luck or mainly hard work. But your brother story is what interests me. Like, let's say y'all are identical twins and just one of you ends up being extremely successful, does some crazy things, and the other one just doesn't, but is still super talented. That always interests me. I'm like, are some people just lucky? They're just literally, for some reason, their opportunities just happen. And other people who are still super talented, but they just don't get these random opportunities that just happen to them. So.
Yeah. There's a friend of mine. He was on my podcast. His name's Gabriel Levi. Ridiculously good guitar player. You should look him up. You probably dig it because you're into like older, like heavy metal and stuff like that. You'd really dig Gabriel Levi. But now we talked about, because he got do you know the band Animals as Leaders? Like a prog metal band. The lead, it's an instrumental prog band, and the main guy's name is Tosin Abasi. He's like a world famous guitar player, has his own line of guitars and stuff like that now. But he went to the Atlanta Institute of Music, and thought it was so valuable that once he got successful, he made a scholarship. Well, my friend Gabriel won the scholarship.
Oh, okay.
I got a full ride to this Institute of Music and stuff like that. But no, I asked him the same thing, like, you know, like, because when he was telling me his life story, from his point of view, everything was a very linear progression to that point. And I would say the same thing about my brother. I love to tell this like wild story about like my brother's just like the emails that he gets and stuff like that. But Gabriel said it best, like success is where preparation meets opportunity.
I've always heard that definition. I really like it.
And like I think that is a very good testament to just how great of a dude my brother is. You know, like he works his butt off. Like if he didn't, these are like he wouldn't be getting these emails if he wasn't just, you know, the reason why he's a TikTok famous bird watcher is because he knows a shit ton about birds. You know, the reason why he sings for Blood, Sweat, and Tears is because he's a great musician. You know, if he wasn't either of those things, those opportunities never would have arisen.
Yeah.
You know,
that's every time I think about those kinds of things, I'm like, yes, that is 100% true. And then a lot of times I'm just like, some people just get lucky. Like some people just like things just happen.
I do think people, you know, people are like more fortunate than most in some instances. But like I said, if he wasn't those things first,
it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I tend to quote Dave Grohl a lot because Dave Grohl's the man. I don't know if you've seen his Hot Ones episode. Yeah. But like he talks about that, like, you know, in the field of music, whatever style it is, like you need to be good at it first. And like if you are really good and you put yourself out there, you know, people are going to notice you at some point. Is it, you know, like, you know, I can say the same thing about like, you know, being a drummer, like, since that's my primary instrument, like, you know, like I've landed like last week, I got more freelance gig work than I knew what to, you know, I had to turn down gigs and stuff like that. And it wasn't because I was like, like I said, I've been playing drums most of my life. It's an instrument I take very seriously, and I put myself in the right position to where people, you know, like I was playing a punk gig, and some dude in the audience was like, "Hey, I'm a country artist. Like, you want to play a gig next weekend?" I was like, "Absolutely." So you know, it's one of those things that just, you know, being good at what you do and putting yourself out there. And I think that's one thing my brother is especially good at, is he is able to be vulnerable on social media in a way that not a lot of people are able to be. You know, like half the people that follow his bird watching content are there because like he's such, like they use it for like meditation. Because he just sits there and he's just like, oh, we're going to sit here for a second. Oh, that's a such and such bird. Oh, that's a, you know, blah, blah, blah. That's a Carolina wren. That's the only bird I can remember. And you know, so like he'll just sit there and name birds and people find it so relaxing. So I do think one aspect of my brother's success especially is I do think people, and this goes back to like what it takes to be successful in music now, because of social media, is I think people crave authenticity more than anything else, because especially in social media, there is a constant feed of people trying to pander to your interests. So to find something really and truly authentic on the internet, I feel personally is getting harder and harder. So like, I do think that's why my brother is so successful. Actually, Crockett Hall on his podcast interview, which is coming out as soon as I edit it. Spoiler alert. No, we talked in his podcast interview about like what it takes to be the next big thing in music. And one thing that he talked about is because trends move so quickly in media, in social media and things like that, that a lot of times you can find yourself, like if you're playing into a certain trend, you're already behind in a lot of sense. So one of the truest and most effective ways to be the next big thing is to be the most authentic version of yourself as possible, because that's going to be the thing that breaks the mold about you. So, so going back to my brother, like, getting a random email is crazy. And like, but also like, had he not been prepared and good at what he already did, those situations would not have happened. So.
Have you ever heard of Savannah Brister?
Yeah, I know Savannah. I worked with Savannah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I know she had been on The Voice. I had her on my podcast. Ooh, this might have been, I think it might have been 2020 when I had her on. It's been a while.
I got you. She was on The Voice. I think it was the season after my brother.
Oh, okay.
And then when she got off, like they're both Memphis people that were on The Voice. So like, we did like a brunch gig with her, and then she's awesome. She is insanely good at what she does too.
Very talented, especially at such a young age. Like she was on The Voice, and I was like, you were how old when you did that? I was
Yeah.
like, that's crazy.
Yeah, no, Savannah's just a great person. I haven't seen her in a long time. Hi, Savannah. He said into the camera once again. This is just me talking to people through your podcast now. Sorry, man.
I wanted to go back to this. We were talking about bringing old things new again. And have you heard of hyperpop?
No, that sounds
So-
cool, though.
I've been bringing it up to people and asking them if they heard of it. So there's a young kid named Sun Person, and that's his artist name.
Was he on this podcast?
Yes, he was.
I've listened to him.
Okay.
Yes, through this podcast. That's
So
where I heard of it.
yeah, so he does this hyperpop thing, and when he first let me listen to it, I was like, this sounds like older electronic music, like old video game style, like I
Really?
guess like a Contra or a Street Fighter or something like that, like older, just music like that, but made more modern. And
Okay.
I was like, it's interesting that younger people chose to be into this because it's older, but not that much older, and they're just calling it this. Now, this is pure my opinion. This is not a fact by any means, but I think it's really cool that, number one, they have made this new genre, which I think genres are getting pretty wild.
Same.
Have you ever heard of Bobby Osinski?
That sounds familiar.
I listen to his podcast all the time, but he's got a music business and music production type podcast. But
Okay.
in his podcast, he was talking about how genres are starting to go away. And when I was listening to it at first, I thought it was pretty silly, but then I was like, that's pretty true, because like if I were to ask you, or if you were to tell me like, have you ever heard of such and such band? You usually go, well, they kind of sound like such and such. You know, that you give me another band or something like that. You don't usually start off with the genre. You just say
Right.
they sound like this person or this group. So with the new kinds of music that are coming out, that's what we just do. We're like, oh, they sound like so and so.
Yeah.
So, genres are relevant. But to add on to that, this is something I brought up with the Flirting with Sincerity podcast, but I forgot to mention Bobby also was saying the reason why genres are going away is because of what we were talking about earlier, the mood. People listen to music nowadays not based off of the genre. They listen to it because of how they feel. I'm happy, I'm going to listen to happy music. I'm sad, I'm going to listen to sad music. It's not I'm happy, I'm going to listen to pop music. I'm going to listen to anything that's happy.
That's
I'm going to listen to anything that's sad because I'm sad. And I was like, oh, that's true.
I do feel that I was talking with my friend. Her name is Phoebe. She writes for a contemporary Christian label in Nashville. But she was talking about, especially in contemporary Christian music, I don't know how much CCM, I learned that term.
CCM?
Yeah,
Oh, I
she
haven't heard that
she
before.
kept saying CCM in the interview. I was like, what is that? She's like, oh, contemporary Christian music. I was like, oh, makes sense now. 'Cause, I mean,
Stop.
shows how much CCM I listen to. But no, she was talking about like I grew up in church and stuff like that, and the thing that always bothered me as a musician and a songwriter was how repetitive, for lack of a better word, like a lot of contemporary Christian lyrics were. It was like, oh, we got holies, and hallelujah in it,
Yeah.
And she talked about like when she was writing for a label, they had always talked about like Becky. Well, it was like Becky's a woman. She's super busy. She's got 3 kids screaming in the backseat of her minivan, and all we're gonna do is like pick this one line and repeat it over and over, and that's gonna be the line that resonates there. And one thing she talked about when she started writing for labels and stuff, she's like, we can expect more from our listeners than this. And she said that's I think she said it's happening in contemporary Christian music, but I really think that's happening across the board in so many genres. Is music was so commercial for such a long time, and it still is to a very huge degree. But I think the internet has broken that in a way to where we have to expect more from the listener and what they're giving us. Because I mean, like there are some styles that are still just totally locked into that and commercialized and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like I think the internet has vastly changed what people can listen to and experience, and I think that has broken the mold on genres and stuff too. Because I mean, like when I was growing up, like you were a metal kid who occasionally dabbled in other styles. You know, you listen to country, you listen to rap, and it, like those were, you know, like there was not a lot of genre hopping when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And then once I got to college, you know, my college was like 2008 was my first year of college, so that was peak like music piracy, you know?
Yeah.
And then like YouTube and Spotify. I think Spotify was like 2009, 2010. So that was, you know, that was when the internet started like breaking genres for everybody. And that's when I really got like, I didn't get into bluegrass until like 2010. You know, I was like a metalhead, and then like 2010, I'm like, this bluegrass song is awesome, man.
Everybody's sleeping on this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think 2010 was when I first got into hip hop too. There was an album. It's called NASA. I don't know if you've heard that. So the project NASA was like North America, South America. And it's these two producers, and they did a collaboration between Brazilian and North American rappers and producers and visual artists and stuff like. It's a really cool.
Dang.
If you ever get a chance, it's a cool ass record, man. But it's got who else it got? It's got Wu-Tang on there. It's got Kanye. It's got Tom Waits is like, Tom Waits is like singing on a hip hop song.
Right.
Yeah. It's got George Clinton from Parliament Funkadelic. It's got David Byrne from Talking Heads sings like 2 songs. It's crazy. So if you ever get a chance, the album's called Spirit of Apollo. Probably one of the coolest hip hop records I've ever listened to in my life. But that was the album. I remember specifically like that being the album. I was like, okay, I like hip hop now, man.
So what are some things that you, I guess, just have seen in the Memphis area that excite you about music or art in general, the creation of music?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think that's a great opportunity that I've been afforded, like having a podcast and being a freelance guy and having my own band, is I get to kind of like experience different aspects of this whole thing. But one thing I have really enjoyed about Memphis is how supportive the community, like there is not a ton of like cutthroat competition and stuff like that. You know, I've heard of other music scenes in different towns and stuff like that. You know, I haven't experienced this, but I've heard about it in Nashville where like, you know, people don't want to show you the ropes because you might steal their gig. And that's not the case here. Like, I mean, you and I both have a podcast. I'm on your podcast right now, and you're going to be on my podcast.
Yeah.
Like, we're not like competing podcast, you know, like, so that kind of stuff. I love how I feel like this is a double-edged sword. There's always this sense of wanting to build something in Memphis, you know? And I mean, how long has your production company been down here? Is it?
We just been here for a year.
Yeah. So it's been, so like you're in that same spirit of like, there is a lot here to make something great.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I talked with, Jim Cole. He runs the Memphis Listening Lab at Crosstown Arts, and he, you know, we talked about like, you know, you've got like Elvis and Stax and Son and like this like golden, like what we could say like the foundation of the music history of Memphis.
Yeah.
And like there's so many people our age and younger, especially younger, like, dude, this next generation is so awesome. Like, don't even get me started how cool like Gen Z. Because I mean, they were in middle school. I taught them like Gen Z kids are awesome. Anyway, that's a whole other rant. But yeah, like there's just this whole spirit of wanting to build something, like build the next thing that Memphis is gonna be known for.
Yeah.
You know, not, you know, like nothing against like Graceland and Beale Street and Stun and Stax, and like those are very like quintessential parts of American musical history that are great.
Mm-hmm.
But I think everybody like who's from around here or works here now is like, all right, like what are we gonna like? What's gonna be the next thing?
Yeah,
and I think that's really cool. But there's also because everybody has that similar mindset, really hard to organize, you know.
Yeah.
And you can have like detractors and naysayers and people that are like, okay, I want to build something, but I want to build it how I want to build it.
Yeah,
you know, not that I know any of those people in particular, but like when you get any large group of people like that together, there's going to be people that are, you know, want to do it their way or in a specific way. But the fact that everybody here, all the musicians here, every musician I met, like they're just hungry to do something and do the next thing and make it cool and make it cooperative and collaborative. Yeah, that's the energy that I love about this city. Is like every musician I meet is like wants to do the next thing and make it better, but also make it positive at the same time. So
yeah. Let's wrap this up.
Totally, man.
Give everybody info how they can reach you and work with you and all that kind of
Cool.
stuff.
My name's Keegan Paluso. I have a giant beard. No, you can find me on everything at Keegan Paluso or Keegan Paluso Music. I just released a single. We're going to shout out that. My stage name is John Keegan, which is my first and middle name. So you can find that on all platforms. It's called John Keegan. The song's called Over There. It's about how the internet is scary. You can email me if you need a drummer or a bass player or you want to do some production work. I will engineer your next record and all that stuff. We can even do it here, or I'll ask if we can do it here. So I'll get permission to do it here if you
You'll
want
just
to
break in and work and then tell me later.
Yeah, no, I will record here with permission. But yeah, you can find me everything. Look up Keegan Paluso. There's very few Palusos in this world. It's super Italian. But yeah, man, that was it. So
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming by.
dude, thank you, man. We gotta tradesies.
Yeah,
so we'll figure it out.
Whenever you're ready.
Cool, man. It was really nice sitting down with you. So
Awesome. All right. Thank you for everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.